How are you, everyone? Today we are going to introduce chapter 8 in our novel The Prisoner of Zenda with the title Setting a Trap. The actions are getting so exciting, so lend me your ears and let's start. Let's start first by revising what happened in the previous chapter through some questions. The first question: what did Rossandel learn from the secret police reports? He learned that Michael and three men had left Strasbourg. Then, how did Rossandel know that his shot was a good one when he heard that Ditchard had wounded arm? Then, what was the king criticized for? He was criticized for taking no steps about his marriage. And then, what did the Countess Helga tell Fritz? She told him that Flavia was already much in love with the king. And then, what did Sabt order Rossandel to do during the grand dance? He ordered him to offer Flavia marriage. Okay, and now number 6, what stopped Rossandel from telling the princess the truth? He heard a heavy step outside the window and Sabt appeared. Then, why did Rossandel decide to leave for Zenda and rescue the king as soon as possible? Because he couldn't continue pretending to be the king, and that wasn't fair for the princess. Then, what had the 10 gentlemen been told about the purpose of the journey to Zenda? These men were told about the summer house attack and Michael's plan to take the throne. They were also told that a friend of the king was a prisoner in the castle of Zenda, and that one of the purposes of the journey was to save this man who is the king's friend. And then, what was the real purpose of the journey to Zenda? Of course, it was to get the king out of the castle of Zenda alive. At the end, in Michael's opinion, what was Rossandel's real aim in coming to Zenda? He thought that Rossandel wanted to get the king killed so that he can take everything he could have, the throne and the princess. And then let's comment. All right, my boy, we mustn't press you. Who said this quotation? We can find that these words were said by Colonel Sabt when it's said to Rossandel by Colonel Sabt when he asked him to offer Flavia marriage when he spoke to her, but of course Rossandel refused to do that because he didn't want to make a fool of her as he wasn't the real king. And then another quotation, I mustn't keep them waiting. These words were said by Rossandel to Sabt when he interrupted his conversation with Flavia to prevent him from telling her the secret that he isn't the real king. He was speaking about some lords who were waiting outside to say goodbye to the king. In the last quotation, do you dream I have leave you and go hunting? These words were said by Rossandel to Princess Flavia when she was sad to know that he is going hunting. He told her that he is going to hunt Michael. This is the end of the previous chapter, and let's move to our new chapter with the title Again Setting a Trap. Let's start. Once Michael knew that Rossandel, the king in the public, was coming to the castle of Turlingham, he sent 3 men to welcome him. I want you guys to think which man did he send. To be fair, he sent the men. Once Michael knew that Rossandel, the king, was coming to the castle of Turlingham, he sent 3 men to welcome him. Think which man did he send? To be fair, guys, Michael had enough respect for Rossendale that he sent the other three of his famous sacks, not the man who had tried to murder him in the summer house. So he sent the three Ruritanian gentlemen who wore Lon Graham, Craftston, and Robert Henshaw. This Robert, who couldn't have been more than 23, who took the lead and made a polite speech expressing how sorry Duke Michael, who wanted to come himself, but he was ill. Rossendale expressed how sorry to hear that he was ill, that, and he also asked him about Mr. Ditchard. Is he better now? As he was told that he had been hurt. Rupert laughed, saying he hopes soon to find medicine for it. Rossendale laughed as he knew what medicine would be. Of course, his medicine would be to kill this Rossendale. Then they turned to leave. Rupert walked past Sapt, who was really angry and wanted to kill him. Then, instead of having dinner in the house, Rossendale took Fritz out with him to the small hotel that he knew before that he went in when he came for the first time in Zenda. There wasn't much danger because the evening was light and the road wasn't lonely. Rossendale covered his face. Rossendale told Fritz that they will order a private room for two gentlemen of the king. One has a bad toothache. Of course, he meant himself, as he's covering his face. He asked Fritz to make sure that the pretty girl at the hotel is who serves them. As they entered the hotel, nothing of Rossendale's face could be seen except his eyes. Then the girl they intended came, and she put the wine down and then asked, feeling sorry, is this gentleman in great pain? Then Rossendale threw the cover from his face, and the girl gave a little cry, saying, it was the king. So Rossendale asked her to serve the king. So he asked her about Joanne, and she answered that he is very busy now at the castle, as he is in charge of the house. But Rossendale asked her to tell Joanne to meet her 2 miles outside Zenda tomorrow evening at 10 o'clock. Then he promised her not to harm him if he would do as he told him. Rossendale's intention was to get Joanne trapped outside the town. When they reached the castle of Turlingham back, Sapt rushed to them, feeling very worried, and told him seriously not to ride around here unless at least 6 men were with him. Why, guys? Of course, because he is ready to be killed anytime. Then Sabt told him that one of his brave guards was lying upstairs with a bullet through his arm. He went out for a walk 1 or 2 miles. So in the woods, just for a walk, he thought he saw 3 men among the trees, and one pointed a gun at him. Of course, that bullet was meant for Rossendale, not for this guard. This is Sapt's opinion, and I think also this is our opinion. This is for Rossendale. Rossendale promised not to leave Ruritania until he killed every one of those sacks and leave the country a clearer place. Next morning, Rossendale was sitting in the garden in front of the house, feeling more relaxed than he had been for some time. At least he was doing something now in work, not like before. when suddenly young Robert Henshaw came through the trees. He asked for a private speech with Rosendal to give him a message from the Duke of Stralsund. Then Robert started directly saying to her, Rosendal, he said, the Duke? So he's speaking Rosendal. Rosendal sat up, saying, shall I call my gentleman to bring you your horse, my lord? He asked him to stop a pretense, but Rosendal said it wasn't finished yet, and he would choose his own name. So Robert said, okay, all right, sir. But he told him that he liked him because both of them like each other. Rosendal said, except that I am honest, loyal to man, and honorable with women, not like you. Then he asked about the message with, with him from Duke Michael. It was an offer again, but this offer this time was more than the previous offer. It's a safe journey across the border and 100,000 English pounds, not just 50. Of course, Rosender refused, so Robert said, you prefer this, and you will have it. Rosender said, but I'm sorry you won't live to see my death. Then Rosendal asked him about the king. He told him that he is alive. Then came the most daring thing. Rosendal's friends were only 30 yards away when Robert was about to get on the horse. He turned to him to shake hands, and with a small knife he struck him in his left shoulder. If he didn't make the sudden movement, it would reach his heart. Rosendal was pleading deeply. Robert Henshaw rode away, followed by cries and shots, when Rosendal fainted. Soon he was awake, and Fred told him that the wound wasn't dangerous, thanks God, and that John had fallen into the trap. He had been caught and was at the moment in this house. But what is strange is that he wasn't sorry for being here, thinking that after Michael had carried out his plan, he will try to get rid of all his helpers except the six. This means Duke Michael will kill him after this. This showed that the prisoner who was the king wasn't a fool one, and that Joan will help them a lot to save the king. Rosendal noticed that this Joan was a weak man rather than a bad one. He also appeared that he was afraid of Duke Michael and his brother Max Wolf, and that was the only thing that could make him harm the king. He told them that the king was locked in a small room in the old castle. Next to it was another room in which three were always there. Three of the six on guard, guarding this room. If there was an attack on the first room, two of these guards would defend it, while the other, Robert or Richard, one of these two, would run and kill the king. Two in guards and one will kill the king. Who was the king, of course, without weapons, and had his hands tied with steel chains. What about the king's body? Asked Rosendal. What would happen to the king's body if he was killed? So Joan started expressing, saying, across the window of the king's room there was a pipe to prevent the light from entering. The mouth of this pipe connected to the window. This pipe is large enough for a man's body to pass down. This pipe ends into the moat. Can you remember the deep moat around the castle? When the king is killed, his body will be put down the pipe. Weighted, his body will be weighted so that it will sink at once to the bottom. The guards will escape by sliding down the pipe into the water, then out, but the king will be at the bottom forever. How cruel and clever a plan is that? And how sad we are for the king. Really, we are sad for him. Rossendel suggested, what about if there is not an armed attack by just a few men? What about if this attack by a whole army that couldn't be defeated? Do you think Duke Michael thought of that idea? What about a whole army attacked them? Yeah, he thought also of this idea. And what would happen in this case if the whole army attacked this plan? The king would be murdered at once. Also, if the attack happened by the whole army, also they will kill the king at once, and his body will put down the pipe also, and one of the six would take his place in the prison, pretending that Michael had put him there. Michael would not admit that this man had angered him, but if he wasn't sorry, if he was sorry now, he could forgive him. Of course, they were shocked by this plan, and then Juan was asked if the king knew that plan. He answered yes, he knew. When they were putting up the pipe at the Duke's orders, the king asked Robert Henshaw what it was. He answered him, this pipe, it was his path to heaven. It was his path to heaven. This is the title of the following chapter. So, what did they mean by this? It's his way after this. He mean only two ways for saving the king. One is by disloyalty in the castle, and the other by an act of God. This is the end, guys. Do you think Michael will achieve his aim? And what would happen to the king? All that we will know later. But now let's discuss some questions together. The first question, what did Rossendel ask Robert about? He asked him about Ditchard injury. And then, where did Rossendel take Fred's? Was it safe? He took him to the town to visit the small hotel that he knew of. Yes, there wasn't much danger because the evening was light. And then, what did Rossendel want from the restaurant's owner's daughter? He asked her not to tell anyone that she saw the king and to tell Juan that she wanted to meet him 2 miles outside Zenda the next day at 10 o'clock in the evening. Why did it seem dangerous for Rossendel to ride in the castle of Turlingham? Because one of the king's men saw 3 men among the trees, and one pointed a gun at him and hit him. Then, what happened while Rossendel was sitting in the garden of the house? Rupert came and asked for private speech with him to give him a message from Michael. What was the message that Rupert delivered Rossendel? It was that Michael offers Rossendel a safe journey across the border, and this time 100,000 pounds. How did Rupert deceive Rossendel? When Rupert wanted to shake hands with Rossendel, Rupert took out a knife and struck him in the left shoulder. And what did Rossendel notice about Juan's character? That he was a weak man rather than a bad one. It was also appeared that he was very afraid of the Duke and his own brother Max Wolf, and that was the only thing that could make him harm the king. And now, what did Juan tell Rosendal about the place of the king? He told him that the king was locked in a small room in the other castle, and there was another room next to it, in which there were always three of the six men. And then, what would happen if someone attacked the first room? Two of the guards would defend it, while Rupert or Richard would run in and kill the king. So, before the outer room was taken by the army, the king would be dead. This is the end of the questions, and let's comment on some quotations. The first one, I forgive them if you wish to serve the king. These words were said by Rosendal to the girl. Who was this girl? The restaurant owner's daughter, to help them to see Juan. And then, oh, I forgot your wishes, sir. He is alive. These words were said by Rupert to Rosendal when Rosendal asked Rupert about his prisoner, the real king. And the last question, kill every one of those six. The country will be a clearer place. These words were said by Rosendal to Sabt, and he meant the six loyal men for Duke Michael. This is the end of the session. I hope to see you soon. Bye.